Yes, welcome into sportsBIT Betting Insight today. Pauly and Teddy, Monday, March 27th, deep dive. Final four numbers are out. We'll look at the early movement with the two games coming up Saturday as we crown a champion here soon in college hoops. Big game breakdown, the doubleheader on TNT, Cavs and the Spurs, Jazz and the Pelicans. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. Always to start here. And I'll tell you, the mother of bad beats, Teddy. How about Saturday, the early game, Gonzaga against Xavier. 88 points in the first half. It stays under because it died in the second half.
I mean, it completely died. And look, I had a lucky tournament. I cashed an under bet in this game, and I did not deserve it even a little bit. Brutal beat if you had Gonzaga, Xavier over. And when you think about the really tough beats this tournament, Oklahoma State hitting the three-pointer at the buzzer. Okay, but Michigan wasn't the right side there. It was a game of runs. Michigan didn't get the money, but you can make that case a coin flip. Or the USC-Baylor game where USC hits the shot late and covers the number. And even that one, back and forth, you're not going to call Baylor the right side there. Here, Gonzaga, Xavier over was the rightest side you could be. They're running up and down the floor. Both teams scoring easy buckets. They're sitting at 124 with 9.5 minutes left, and it stays under 145 with a bucket to spare, Pauly. It's a brutal beat. My condolences for those of you who are the other side, and I'll tell you what, though, I ain't giving the money back.
Nasty Gonzaga defense. Well, it gets worse, though. You could have had Clipper money line yesterday. They led by 18 with 5 minutes left and lost the game. They missed their final 9 field goal attempts. ESPN stats and info. Going back the last 20 years, a team leading by 18-plus points in the final 5 minutes was 6,746-1 when leading by that much. And for whatever reason, in the goddamn story, they didn't say who the team was that lost.
I know, that's all I do. Whenever they say something, and won, I always want to know who that one team was. Here, throw the other graphic up there, because this is just for this year. Okay, teams leading by 18 or more points in the final 5 minutes. This year, 359-1. That would be the Clippers. Now, coming into Sunday, that one other team had lost in that role. I honestly don't know who it was, and I looked for it. But what do you say about the Clips right now? I mean, they've lost 10 of their last 19. They fell a game behind the Jazz for home court advantage in the first round of the playoffs for fourth place in the Western Conference. There's 9 games remaining. And then you see the quote from Chris Paul. They got it going, and you just try and hold on. It's a bad loss, probably the worst one in the regular season in my career. Yeah, I'd say if you had a Clippers money line ticket, that was pretty brutal. If you had the Clippers minus the points, it wasn't fun, let alone on the money line. That's as tough a loss as it gets.
Might have to blow that up, and they could be one and done in the playoffs. You remember they had that bad loss earlier in the week, last week rather, at Dallas as well. Bad bets. Kansas, I can't believe it. It was on ESPN, the largest win in Sweet 16 tournament history. You see Kentucky won by 39, lost in the Final Four. Also, these are all Sweet 16. Louisville won by 39 in 2009, lost in the Elite Eight. Kentucky won by 34 in 93, lost in the Final Four. Then you had Kansas. After what they did to Purdue, they couldn't do a damn thing. Mason struggled, the Big struggled, Jackson was in foul trouble, and the Ducks, Pac-12 in the Final Four.
Quack, quack. And what do you say for the Jayhawks? They had one game where they couldn't miss a shot, and the next game they couldn't make a shot. Let's give Oregon credit, and let's note the fact, and this is a graphic that we had up last week talking about this game in the preview, and how the big blowout win in the Sweet 16 does not necessarily bode well for future success. That was certainly the case over the weekend. Kansas couldn't hit a shot, and Oregon goes to the Final Four. Bad bet for those of you who bet the Jayhawks from -5 up to -6.5.
Final Four for the first time since 1939. How about that? What a great coaching job by Dana Altman. Brooklyn, Atlanta, over bet up from 214 to 217. Fell 199. Horrible there. Bad bet. Never had a chance. By the way, Atlanta, 0-8 straight up this year without Millsap.
Yeah, and this is a tank job right now for the Hawks. You come home, you've lost 7 in a row, you're playing Brooklyn. Okay? You're supposed to win that game. And the markets, the usual market pattern is to play those early Sunday tip-offs under. Players aren't used to getting out of bed. Here, the money came in on the over. That total got steamed up 3 points. never sniffed a chance. The Hawks sleptwalked through the whole game. They shot 35%, under 35%, hit just 5 of 27 from three-point range. The bench shot 3 of 19. I mean, not a pretty performance for Atlanta, and a pretty bad bet if you were on that over.
Here's another one. If you had the Rockets and the Thunder under, bet down from 233 to 230. It fell 262. It was 79 to 59 at the half.
Yeah, the Rockets shot 71% in the first half. It was insane. Houston was hitting everything, and you read the post-game quotes, and everyone from Oklahoma City is like, "Hey, when they're hitting shots, there's not a whole lot we can do." Russell Westbrook put up all the pretty numbers out there. 39 points, 13 assists, 11 rebounds. The Thunder, however, despite those pretty numbers, minus 14 with him on the floor. Didn't play a whole lot of defense, not a single steal in 39 minutes of actions. We'll be doing a sportsBIT feature on Westbrook's defensive antics soon, so you can put his season in a proper perspective. We did this for Isaiah Thomas in Boston and showed how weak his defensive numbers were and how he shouldn't be someone that's in the MVP consideration. Westbrook's going to be in the MVP consideration, but when we show you the defensive stuff, you'll see. He's not necessarily the guy you're going to vote for the award.
Not to mention the biggest ball hog in NBA history. All right, bad for the books. This was no good. North Carolina falls on 2. Horrible for the bookmakers.
Yeah, no question. It opened -3. Was at 2.5, bounced between 2 and 2.5. Kentucky bettors all able to get their tickets at +2.5. And North Carolina bettors that waited could have laid -2, no problem. -2 is widely available to at least get a push. Look, good bettors are supposed to win and push this game. Nobody's supposed to lose. If you're losing games like this one, we talk a lot about handicapping skills in this show. Betting skills is an equal or more important part of the equation. That's something you need to work on if you're losing games like this one. This was not a good result for the house. And, of course, at the South Point in Vegas, there was a North Carolina backer who was pretty happy with that game-winning jumper, wasn't he, Pauly?
Yeah, they took 100 to win $100,000 on North Carolina money line. They were down 5 in the second half. They come back to win. Not to mention, if that shot doesn't go in, you're alive with the over as well because it goes to overtime. Fantastic game, but yes, a $100,000 bet to win $100,000 on the money line there at the South Point. Not a good result at the South Point, but they took that bet. Well done.
Yeah, exactly. I'm never going to, books that accept big action, we give them all the credit in the world. South Point, kudos to you guys, even though you took it on the chin for this one. Remember, they made $100,000 off that the publicity stunt they did where Derek Stevens came in and picked all 32 games of the first round.
Bad for the books. Blazers in the under. Portland bet up from 6 to 7. Under from 223 down to 220. No shot. Look at them. This stayed under. Wasn't even close. 97 to 81. The Lakers know this is getting serious because they want to keep their pick. What the hell were they doing Friday night when they were down 8 with 2 minutes, came back to win? They only have a 1-game lead over the Suns for the second worst record.
Yeah, but if you're on the team, it's different if you're in management versus you're on the team. But Lakers off a win, pretty easy to expect a no-show here, and it was. The markets were on it. The markets were on the Blazers. The markets were on the under, and LA scores 81 points and does not cash an over ticket or a Lakers ticket. Bad for the books with Blazers and under.
Now they got the message now. That it sets them back 5 years if they lose that pick. Because the tanking really should take it up a notch in the final 2 weeks. TNT doubleheader up next, and then early look at the Final Four lines on sportsBIT. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on sportsBIT Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. Big game breakdown. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Game 1 of a doubleheader on TNT. Good game. Cavs and the Spurs. Spurs at home 4.5, 212.5 the total. Only 11 games left. Cleveland does not know how to guard anybody. Defense is an embarrassment. Worst post-All-Star break defense the last 10 seasons. This is points per 100 possessions. Throw that graphic up. Look at this. It's the Lakers leading the way, followed by this year's Cavs. Come on.
And you look at the other, let me just jump in here real quick, because you look at the teams on this list, there's not a good team in the bunch. There's not a one of them that's on this list. And when you look at Cleveland's numbers, they're so far out of whack with what we expect from championship contending teams. These are lottery-bound teams that we're looking at right here, and the Cavs near the top of the list. Now, All right, they've had enough of this graphic. You got to throw up the other graphic, Pauly. Give them this one, because this is the one that's going to, I don't know if it's going to blow your mind. It's going to make you pay attention to the Eastern Conference right now, because when you look at these numbers, you're not going to think Cleveland's going to win the title. Look at them. Throw it up there.
NBA champs. Yep. Post break defense. Points per 100 possessions. San Antonio, 2007, 96.4. Look at Cleveland last year, 104.4. This year, 113.5. And compare it to last year. Go back to Golden State in 2015. How about this? Look at Lou. Quote, I'm not confident, but we got to get back to getting the defense fixed. We have to. Oh, I mean, look what so LeBron calls out the team after they gave up all those points at Denver. Then they come at home against the Wizards, and the Wizards drop, what, 127 on them?
Yeah, I mean, then open looks all day. And, I mean, let's be real. Again, let's flash that graphic one more time. Look at those champions, okay? These are the champs. The worst in the last 10 years was the Cavs last year. That was the worst team of all of them in terms of defense after the All-Star break. And, look, Cleveland was a long shot to win that series. You know, they did it. They stole it thanks to Draymond Green, perhaps, and thanks to some hot shooting, you know, in the finale.
Not perhaps. If he doesn't get suspended, they lose the series. You're right.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. Exactly. But the Cavs are going, you know, 10 years from now, no one's going to remember that. Cleveland won the title. And Cleveland won the title last year, but their defense isn't any good. And their defense this year, since the All-Star break, what, about 9 points worse per 100 possessions than it was last year? Here's LeBron's quote. You want to build something defensively so you can always have something to go into the postseason. It's been more down than up. So, not room for concern, but we want to be more up than down, especially defensively coming down the stretch. Well, so far it's been all talk and no action for the Cavs on the defensive side of the basketball.
Yeah, you got the Spurs post-break defense at 101.1. Is it step-up time, or will Pop decide to sit guys because they have the game tonight, then they play the Warriors at home Wednesday, then they go to OKC on Friday, and they still are a couple games behind Golden State for the 1 seed. Good sign off the bench. Gasol 19 and 10 in just 25 minutes against the Knicks. It was the Knicks, but that was Saturday. And here's Gasol. These last 10 games are opportunities for us to get ready and to see where we're at. At this point, we just have to build the right habits so when we start our playoff run, we're ready to go. We're sharp, locked in, and we know what we're playing for, end quote.
Yeah, now note the lack of urgency for San Antonio when it comes to this home court edge. And I know that the pundits, the mainstream media, home court, they all want the home. The TSs don't give a shit about the home court. All right, San Antonio doesn't give a shit about the home court. Cleveland doesn't care about the home court for both of these teams. You know, and now what, with the Warriors win yesterday, the Spurs are now 3 games back out of the number 1 seed in the West. It's not important. You know, a good sign is Powell coming off the bench and, 19 and 10 against the Knicks. And when you think about the combination with Powell and Leonard and Aldridge in the front court, a combination that hasn't been on the floor together enough this year, that's going to be tough for anybody to defend in the postseason, including a team like Cleveland. We're not even in the postseason yet. It's going to be difficult for the Cavs to defend that trio here in tonight's matchup, obviously, with San Antonio as home chalk in this one.
All right, we'll get back to this game coming up. The doubleheader on TNT, game number 2, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Pelicans and the Jazz, no line because Cousins is questionable, Hayward's questionable, and Teddy's line, if everyone plays, is Utah -6. The game is in Utah, Teddy.
Yes, confirmed. Confirmed to be in Utah. I'm not screwing up the point spread this time. Of course, we had an issue, if you missed it last week, with a Washington Wizards game that I thought was in D.C., which was not. But for this game, yes, everybody plays line. With Cousins, with Hayward, my line is Utah -6.
Utah was laying 5 on March 6th. They won 88-83. Cousins and Davis held to 35 points, 12 of 32 shooting. Hayward had 23 for the Jazz. Gobert had 15 points and 16 rebounds. But maybe the schedule's taken a toll on the Jazz. 14 court changes in 16 games since the break. It'll stretch out to 20 and 21 before they get a couple of days off at home late next week.
Oh, yeah, and it's gotten to them, you know, and we look at Utah, a team that has not played good basketball of late. They're 1-4 straight up, 0-4-1 against the spread in their last 5 ball games, you know, and they made the playoffs. They clinched for the first time. They're in the playoffs for the first time since 2012. They clinched yesterday with the Nuggets loss last night. They're still on pace for their best record since 2010, but, I mean, they're kind of, look at the quote from George Hill, after saying they'd hit a wall. Quote, It could be a bunch of things, but I think we have to get back to getting better starts, and we have to get back to playing better defensively. We have to regather ourselves as a team and focus on the task at hand. We have to get back to playing the type of basketball that we know we're capable of. And some of these quotes, Pauly, I'm not really impressed with them at all. Rodney Hood, everyone wants to talk about the playoffs, but honestly, we just have to get back to who we are. We have to get back to playing well regardless. If we can do that, we're fine. And of course, Rudy Gobert calling out his teammates. Quote, we've got guys that compete, but some of us don't compete. Some of us just think about scoring. That's what it is. Coach keeps repeating it. We've just got to compete. We're too nice. Those guys, we know they're going to get calls. We just got to come out aggressive and be ready to fight. These aren't the quotes I want to hear from a team like this at this stage of the campaign. And, I mean, Gobert's been a monster. In the month of March, he might have been the NBA's best front court player. He had 9 double-doubles in his last 10 games. And the one he missed, he had 9 rebounds. The last 2 games, 61 points, 27 rebounds, 6 block shots. But as a team, Utah, both in terms of schedule and in terms of level of play, they've been in significant decline in recent weeks.
Look what they did to the Pelicans. Come on with this NBA. The back-to-back altitude of Denver, which they won and played well in a blowout. Denver, Utah, back-to-back, 8-man rotation. Cousins been settling in, too. 70 points, 23 rebounds, 7 blocks in the last 2 games. Now the ankle injury, as we said at the top. Now, what do they do with Gentry? How does he treat this? They played fine without Cousins, actually. They're 3-0 straight up in ATS. Minutes were decent at Denver because of the working margin. Davis had 31 and 15, only played 28 minutes, though.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not worried about Cousins' absence. As you mentioned, 3-0 straight up, 3-0 against the number. But this is the key stat from that. The 3 games he's missed, they've covered the number by 76.5 points, Pauly. They've been not just covering, they've been point spread machines without DeMarcus Cousins. Now, as you mentioned, it is a tough set of back-to-backs, but it was blowout city in Denver. Anthony Davis only played 28 minutes last night, and even with that 8-man rotation, when you're coming off a 25-point win, when you're playing with confidence, New Orleans and Utah are in different places in their respective heads right now. Pelicans are feeling good about themselves. The Jazz, not so much.
Yeah, they've had problems with the spacing with the 2 bigs, and so the success without Cousins is a good point pointing that out there. Up next, the deep dive. Final 4 numbers are out. We'll take a look at that, and with 4 teams left, there was a 300-1, a 40-1, a 60-1 chance to hedge and make some big money. And the play of the day on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Wrapping up on sportsBIT, Betting Insight today. First look at the Final 4. Reminder, we'll start talking MLB props tomorrow. Rob Vino to talk bullpens later in the week, as well as baseball right around the corner. And you want to watch that 2-part interview to make some money, how to attack these bullpens, who to fade, who to follow there. This is great. So we got our Final 4, 2 1s, a 7, and a 3. Gonzaga, first time in the Final 4. Same with South Carolina and Oregon, first time since 1939. North Carolina's been there 100 times. But highest available odds before, during the season, William Hill on Twitter, at William Hill US on Twitter. Carolina was 20-1. Oregon was 40-1 in December. Gonzaga 60-1, although that was in May of 2016. The hype started early. They were preseason top 20. And then had the big wins non-conference. South Carolina, March 9th, 300-1, Teddy.
Yeah, if you have a South Carolina ticket in your pocket, now is the time to start thinking about hedging that ticket. And we'll talk about some strategies as the week progresses. But your simplest, basic strategy, when you have a 300-1 in your pocket, you're going to have to hedge 2 games. You're going to hedge with your opponent on the money line. And your initial wager, you don't want it to be nuts. Because if you win this game and you lose your hedge bet, you're going to have to do it again for the championship game. Now, you talk about these 4 teams. Gonzaga's never been to a Final 4. South Carolina's never been to a Final 4. And Oregon was, you talked about earlier, the first NCAA tournament ever back in 1939, and they haven't been since. And then, of course, there's North Carolina, who's in their 20th Final 4. Obviously, the Tar Heels, the prohibitive favorites. And when you look at the numbers, it's the best odds you could have gotten on any of these teams all year. North Carolina, the shortest. They're the only one of these teams that is, quote-unquote, supposed to be here. Look at the Gamecocks. They hadn't won an NCAA tournament game in 44 years until last weekend. And here they are. So it is a I'm not going to say a random Final Four, but it was a Final Four with one blue blood and 3 upstarts. And it really is that simple.
Opening lines, Gonzaga 6.5, 138. Karnowski's now been a part of 135 wins, more than any other player in the history of college basketball. The Gonzaga Arena seats 6,000. They'll be playing in front of 70,000 Saturday in Glendale. And, I think that total's high because you got the top 2 defensive teams in the country going at it.
Yeah, no question. And again, some books open Gonzaga -6. Other books open Gonzaga -7. Total pretty much has been 138 since it opened. And what happened was all the first bets in that were all arbitrage. They were laying 6 and they were taking 7, and now we're looking at 6.5/138. And I would call that the official quote-unquote opener, because you see people, again, talking about what the opening number is, and it varies from book to book. The markets are saying 6.5, 138. I would do your future grading off of those numbers.
All right, Carolina opened 4.5 and 150 the total against Oregon. You saw some early over money.
Yeah, I mean, the total there actually opened in the 148.5, 149 range, and immediately pop. We saw money come in on the over. And again, before the broad markets open, we're looking at a total of $150 there. So I think that's a very reasonable over. But all that first money, sidewise, didn't see anything. Nothing but over money when it came to the Tar Heels, even though they did not cash an over ticket against Kentucky yesterday.
This is a hell of a team. And I know they lost to Boucher. Some people said, no, not that big of a deal. One bettor at the Golden Nugget put $10,000 on Oregon to win the regional at 5-1. Congrats there. Dorsey, though. I mean, all the talk was Dylan Brooks, and rightfully so. But Dorsey, maybe the best player in the tournament. 98 points in 4 games, 17 of 26 from 3, 18 assists, 16 rebounds, and 6 steals. The big 3 against Rhode Island to get the win, too.
Yeah, no question. I mean, again, 17 of 26 from three-point range. And you've got more than 4 assists and 4 rebounds per game and a steal and a half per game. I think Tyler Dorsey has been the MOP going into the Final Four, but we know how that award gets distributed. It gets distributed to the guy that wins the title. So we still got a couple more victories for him. What about Frank Martin and the Gamecocks, man? This is going to be fun. We get a full week of Frank Martin and his insane personality. But of course, yeah, this is a team, and again, they play in the SEC, so they haven't been to hostile venues. But when you talk about playing in front of 70,000 fans, P.J. Dozier, quote, I can't even imagine it. I have no idea what to expect. And when you're a pedigree program, when you've been in these situations before, playing in these odd venues, you're certainly more used to it. I would anticipate a team like South Carolina to have some struggles adjusting, particularly early on.
We're as cold as ice. We need a winning streak, Teddy Covers. Come on, money time, play of the day.
Wait, we got North Carolina to talk about first.
Nah, no, too much. No, come on, it's on a
All
half-hour show. Money time, play of the day, betting number 735, 736. Cavs, Spurs, over 212.5. Spurs let us down that last game when they stayed under against Minnesota. Spurs have cashed only 200 tickets their last 7 ball games. We told you about the Cavs. I mean, what a quote from Lou. That's the head coach saying, I'm not confident we can fix it. So I think you see a shootout tonight in this first game of TNT, and the Cavs haven't been able to guard anybody. Let's go over 212.5 with this one. MLB coming up tomorrow. Props, MLB the rest of the week. Final Four, NIT. Loaded week coming up. 2 weeks left in the regular season of the association. Have you covered on sportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.